Hey everyone, welcome to the Self-Awareness Journey podcast. I'm Melissa Albers.
And I'm JJ Parker. This podcast is for seekers of happiness, joy, and a centered approach to success in life. Seekers of their true, authentic selves.
Get ready for some real talk on everything from anxiety, emotions, and habits to love, compassion, and forgiveness. We know you'll be challenged and enlightened by this conversation, and we're so glad you're here. Let's dive in. JJ, I was just thinking it's the season, right? We're getting into the season.
What season
the
is
season
that?
of giving, the season of donations. Isn't your mailbox getting cluttered with lots of envelopes for donating and that sort of thing?
Probably.
One
It's
of
like
the
Give
things
to the
that I
Max
do-
coming up. Is that
Yeah.
that event?
Yep.
Or, yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm not good with dates,
All right.
as you know. It got me thinking, though. One of the huge things that I love to do is donate to that second
Harvest
The Harvest.
Heartland. My role in your life is to
why.
remember that organization's name.
I don't know why I can't remember that name. Anyway, it got me thinking about something, though, because they're doing a big push for donations right now. And I just got being curious about why do I always feel so passionate about giving to this? Obviously, it's a huge beneficial organization, so there's all the obvious reasons, right? But I have a special interest in this one, and I hadn't ever actually explored why. And then it hit me this week. I had an experience. I bet it was at the Mall of America when it first opened. So how many years ago is that? Like 25 years or I mean
more, maybe more.
Okay.
Like it maybe opened in like the mid 90s. Early 90s.
Okay.
Early 90s.
Yeah.
I went there in high
Right.
school. I would go there in high school. It was like the early 90s. It's probably like 1990.
Okay. So I was in my early 20s
Yeah.
then.
So 30
Or 20s
years
anyway.
ago.
Okay. I had an experience that to this day I regret so deeply. I don't know how to get over it. And I think one of the
I don't want to insert comedy in the middle
serious.
of your story, but it's like I'm
No,
at
'cause
the mall
it's
and
very
there's
dramatic.
this regret. I'm like, is it shoes?
Yeah. Okay. Don't be ridiculous. Of course I bought the shoes. Silly. I can't even believe you'd wonder about that. No, I'll tell you about it. But I wanted to talk about regret. It got me thinking about this idea of regret. It got me thinking about the things in my life that I don't want to go to the grave with regrets. That's like a big thing for me. But I realize I have this regret that happened at the mall when I was quite young, and I don't know how to get rid of it. So here's what happened. They had all those food courts, and it was a kind of a big deal when it first opened. There was some kind of crepes restaurant that was at one of the food courts in the Mall of America, and it was a novel place, right? And so I went and got a crepe for lunch. And while I was sitting in the main area, the open, it was actually right out in the open, a homeless person came up to me, and it was a woman, and she said, "Is that good?" And I said, "Yeah, it is." And she said, "Would you buy me lunch?" And I said, "Oh, I don't think so." Right? Simple as that. And she went, "Huh," and walked away. And I'll tell you something, I cannot get over this. I can't get over it. And I don't know what to do to get over it.
That's like
It's just a huge regret.
yeah, that's like a 30-year thing you still think about.
Yes.
It's probably
Exactly.
hard to actually
And I do
remember
still think about it.
any other detail. Like try to remember a detail that vividly from your mid-20s. Like you probably can't.
I know. No, I remember what she was wearing. I remember what she was carrying. I remember it like it was absolutely yesterday. And I feel like it was one of those searing memories that just like hit my long-term system. And like I don't know if I'll ever be able to do enough to feel like I have redeemed that
I see what
decision.
you're saying. So you're actually you were kind of saying like one of the things that drives you to donate to nonprofits, specifically ones around food insecurity, are because of this event in your
100%.
20s
Yep.
with this woman.
Right. Right.
That's
Right.
That's
Right.
amazing.
Well, it's not. It certainly isn't something to be lauded, in my opinion. I honestly, but I just thought I wanted to talk with you about regret, because I think there's all kinds of regrets that we have in our lives, and I think some of them are, some of them are really serious things that have happened. Some of them really aren't. Some of them are short term. I think there's a number of types of regrets.
Yeah. So,
and I don't know what this one falls under.
Well, that's a good question.
I know.
Well, regrets are funny because we hear it all the time that you never want to be like on your deathbed with regrets. Right? You get that no regrets tattoo on.
Yeah, right. Okay, there will be no tattoos. Absolutely no tattoos.
But yeah, the idea that we try to construct or go through life without accumulating regrets is,
well,
like, I don't know, like I don't know how to explain it. It's positioned in a way. I'd say, like, there's a positioning around regrets
I agree.
like, you shouldn't have them.
Right. There's a theoretical talk about regrets, just like everything else in this world, the human condition. There's always the theoretical, you should, you could, blah, blah, blah. Then there's the real McCoy, the stuff that really sits in there. Have you had things in your life that you've regretted? Like, do you have any recollection? I'm not asking you to, whatever. But have there been things in your life where you have recalled and that feeling of regret comes up, or do you feel not really?
No, for sure. There's definitely things that I think all of us have done or not done. Actually, I would say the things that I regret the most are things that I didn't do, not things that I actually did.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, that's so good, because that's really probably true for me too.
Inaction is what I generally regret much more than like bad action. You know what I mean? Like, if I do something and I kind of like F it up, or it's inappropriate or whatever, at least like I, can kind of rectify that in some way.
At least you try.
Or I can apologize for it, or there is some course of action after you do that. If you don't do anything, that to me is the much harder one to deal with, like on a long-term basis, because you can't ever go back and rectify it. Like, you can't ever go back and buy that woman lunch, right?
No,
and it will stick.
Thank you for reminding me of that.
And it will stick with you forever. And it's you know what I mean? Like, and it's stuck with you.
Yeah, I do.
If you could go do that, if you could go figure out who that was, go buy her lunch right now, you would go do that, and you might be able to actually release that regret.
Right. But what do you do when you can't? So we're doing a little role reversal because
Coach.
I started the conversation this morning, which normally is not the case, mostly because I wander around the woods to get to the story, and you're always so much better. But the second thing that I did that is usually role reversal is I went to the Google. I went to the Google and I asked this question.
Research.
I did my research because I was waiting for you to say, I don't really have many regrets. I mean, I don't know if
I'm just tra-la-line through life with no regrets. It's amazing. Skipping and whistling.
It's amazing. Carrying your basket with flowers. All right. Here are 6 steps that I was given in one of the things that I read on what to do to remove a regret.
Oh, this is good. I like this. Oh, I like being on this side of the coin.
Yeah. Don't get used to it. It's very uncomfortable for me. All right. What to do? Number 1, let yourself feel regret without avoiding or wallowing in it.
So,
well, it's a little late for that for me because I have been
kind of like wallowing
in it, and I
for
probably
like 3
do
decades.
wallow. Do you
that's
think
a little
it's
long.
time to deal with it differently?
A tad long.
Okay. If your behavior caused harm, try to make amends. Okay. So I feel like I've done that. I feel like as many amends as I possibly can. I try to show kindness to people. I try to be giving of my resources to the others. I try to give a lot of money to food insecurity specialty places.
The event has like, okay, what's interesting about this is this is like a burden on you emotionally, yet it has really shaped who you are and created a really great, amazing virtue about you.
Oh, that's interesting. That's a really nice way to, and that's number 4.
Oh, I skipped
You skipped 3
okay.
and you went right to 4. Well, number 4, and then I'll go back to 3. Number 4 is reframe your experience of regret.
Oh yeah, we talk about reframing all the time.
What you've just said, I know. It's so funny. I mean, it's like I always say, when you're standing in your frame, you can't see your own picture. You know, like it'd be easier for me to be talking about this if this was you. I would prefer it would be you instead of me. Nothing personal. But number 3, which I will come back to now, is learn to forgive yourself.
That's hard to do.
Right. Now, it's very hard to do. Now, it's very easy to see that. And it's also very easy to, manipulate your brain into saying, well, yeah, just do that. How hard can it be? Well, apparently it's pretty hard.
From your own
Apparently
experience.
It's pretty hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. And forgiving yourself, I think, is the key to so many pieces of self-awareness and self-growth. Actually, it's the key. It's the key to everything when you're trying to develop yourself, I think. Okay, so that was number 3. Number 4 was reframe. Number 5 was write about and share your regret. So I don't think I should just do anything quietly on a Post-it note. Nope. I have to talk about it in a pod with thousands of listeners. Nothing like putting myself out there, right? But I think it's really important to share it, because maybe that's part of the challenge of regret, because I think there's some shame involved with regret. Shame of not behaving in a way.
I would say that's the primary thing is shame. And then you hold on to that for a really long time.
And when shame stays in secret, it's a very powerful, it's a powerful emotion. But I think just kind of bringing it out and talking about it makes it a little more, I don't know, more available to you to release some of it. And then number 6 was use regret to clarify what you value. Well, look at it's JJ. Did you write that Google article? Like you just naturally did all those things. So good.
I was more succinct about
Use
it.
regret to clarify what you value. You were.
Okay, tell me the list again. Like go through that whole list again.
Yeah. Okay. Number 1, let yourself feel regret without avoiding or wallowing in it. Well, I think that's like key, right? Obviously, we always talk about that, skimming off the top and worrying about something else over the top of it. Okay, so number 1, let yourself feel regret. Number 2, if your behavior caused harm, try to make amends. Number 3, learn to forgive yourself. Number 4, reframe your experience of regret. Reframe your experience of regret. Number 5, write about and share your regret. And number 6, use regret to clarify what you value.
Yeah, that's really good. That is like so many things that are fairly simple. Like you can understand all of those things, but they are really hard to do.
Yeah. In addition to that, I also Googled some other things around regret. And there's one other part I want to share with you. I think this is just a really healthy conversation to have, particularly with the holiday season coming up. I think there are a lot of personal relationships, family relationships in which regret runs really deep. And you know what? Maybe it's time for all of us to be able to put some of that down. Maybe it's time to allow growth and reframing and forgiveness so that you can expand into something else and leave some of that behind. So this was interesting because I found a PhD that recommended asking yourself a series of questions as a way to move forward from regret and then to create healthier behavioral patterns. Okay, so are you ready?
Ready.
There's like 5 or 6. Okay. Number 1, Have you noticed how excessive regret affects what you do and say?
So
Do you have a
is
top?
that? So
Oh, go ahead.
how does it affect what you do and say? So in your example, it affects what you do. It probably affects what you say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, because I don't want to, it's like when you become a speaker, they teach you how to tell stories. Like a good speaker is a great storyteller, and a good speaker recognizes the incredible power over how the story is told. A good speaker will want to seem like the one that gets along the best with the audience. Doesn't have to be the hero, doesn't have to be the power, right? Bad speaker will try to command and be all of these things. I think right in here, we all speak to everybody, we all interact with everybody, and I think our egos are constantly moving us in a direction of trying to be the hero or trying to not be the hero. I just think naturally that's the case. And how do you notice how excessive regret affects what you do and say? Right in there, like I could have just used a totally different example today on our pod. And I could have spun it very casually and non-personally. And yet this one is so big, I just felt like I couldn't not. So, that's how it affected me. I had to say something today about it. Okay, the second question. Could you have acted any differently considering the particular stage in your life and the information and experiences you had until this point in your life?
I was just going to ask you. I was going to ask that question specifically. Like,
you were?
I wanted to bring up the idea that like a lot of regrets are from when we were maybe younger. Well, all regrets are from the past. Right? No regrets is from the future.
That's true.
In the future, I'm going to regret not.
Absolutely.
Like, that's not a thing. All regrets are from the past, and like what you know now versus what you know then, and kind of what your experience was then, what your even like emotional or cognitive abilities were back then are completely different than they are today. So it's actually pretty unfair of yourself to like regret a thing that your younger self did because you're not remembering like your maturity level and experience level at that time as a 20-year-old. Right? You can't apply your 50-year-old brain to your 20-year-old actions.
Yeah. Right. Well, yeah, exactly right. I think you could certainly
you can't hold your younger self accountable to who you are today. Maybe that's a better way to phrase it.
Yes, yes, exactly. Yeah.
So giving yourself some grace.
Really good.
Like, yes, I was immature and stupid, and I wish I didn't do that, but I did. I've learned. I've done all of these things, and it's made me a better person in the long run. Thank you, lady, for even approaching me at that point in my life.
Yeah, no kidding.
Because in one way, she actually gave you a tremendous gift. Even though you feel bad about it, she gave you a tremendous gift that has allowed you to give the world and many more people than just her help.
Yeah.
You've helped many more people beyond her. So she kind of like, in an extension, has helped hundreds or thousands of people through you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's a really interesting way to look at it. Honestly, I feel a lot lighter just even thinking about it like that. I really do. Here are just a couple of other questions. I really think that was the piece to resistance. I'm surprised they didn't just have that as the only one because it's very powerful, at least the way you framed it. Okay. Here's the number 3. Was it only you or did anything else contribute to your mistake? Oh, that's an interesting one.
Yeah, that one's interesting because I think we take way more. We think we have a lot more influence over the world than we actually do.
100% agree.
And so, again, when we start looking backwards, our memories get so bad, right? And we just don't really remember all of these details. And there's probably lots of other
selective
compounding factors that were going on, during these times. Yeah.
So that's the other one. Okay, and then was there anything specific in the situation that you particularly regret? So I guess that's being more and more specific, and I think I've already kind of talked about that in this scenario. But anyway, yeah, those were. Oh, and then sorry. As a result of this regretful experience, have you changed the way you behave and respond in similar situations? Yes, I have. Yes, maybe even almost to a fault sometimes. So going in the opposite direction.
So what does it take? Like, what is it going to take for you to forgive yourself for that interaction and like let it go? Or can you never let it go? Wow. Is it just a part of who you are forever?
No, I think you're absolutely right. That's a great question, and I think that there is nothing else that needs to happen for me to forgive myself. I think it's reframing this and thinking about it. Like, I think it's just been helpful to talk about it. Like, I think it's really an interesting perspective, like just being able to share something that has caused so much shame and embarrassment and regret over this tiny microscopic moment in time. You know, it's just like that isn't a realistic thing to do. And I certainly don't coach other people to do this, you know?
Well, not realistic. Yeah. Well, because you're in your head about it.
Yeah, exactly right. And it was my experience, you know, like I hold myself to such a high standard. Well, let's be realistic. I'm a human being. I'm not a robot.
The other thing, you know, this idea, like, what I asked, what is it going to take for you to let it go? I want to be like kind of more clear about that. I don't mean what is it going to take to forget it, because I don't think you should ever forget that lesson. I think you should forgive.
I don't think I could
you
anyway.
should forgive yourself for the way you acted at that time.
I agree. Interestingly enough, I just read this book last week, and I don't even remember the context or what part of it, but it was very similar. It was like your younger self is somebody completely different. Oh, I remember what it was. I was listening to this new podcast that Julie Louis-Dreyfus has out, which it is absolutely fantastic. It's called Wiser Than Me. And she interviews women that are older than her, and great, you know, really big names. And like the first one that she did was Jane Fonda. And she asked Jane this question: what would you tell your 21-year-old self? And she asked that question on every one of her pods to all these women. And every one of them has such unique and such interesting answers. And Jane's answer was, no is a complete sentence. Some of the other answers are, you know, what would you say to yourself? I would say lighten up. You know, it'll all work out. And one of them said, it doesn't matter what job you have right now, because you're not going to be doing that your whole life at all. Don't even worry about it. Don't even worry about it. And in the spirit of that, answering your question, it is the exact same thing. It's like my younger self didn't know. Like I'm so much more, I was going to say mature, but, you know, I always shy away from using the word mature to describe myself. Yeah. But, you know, I do have so much more context to life than I did at that time.
We're going to have a whole episode where we just come up with new words for being old.
Listen, I'm going first, you little brat.
Well, thanks for sharing. I mean, I know, like, sometimes you know, sharing personal stories and getting into that amount of detail from the past is sometimes hard. So I really appreciate you sharing it with all of us. And I hope
I always
helpful.
Feel like you're way better at doing that than I am, but I'm trying. Yeah, and I just think you know, for our listeners too, it's like I think regrets come in all shapes and sizes, and it just doesn't feel like a very helpful or useful long-term ailment if left in your system unprocessed.
Yeah, so
you know,
like I think a great exercise would be to think about those things that you regret, and not just dwell on the thing you should have done. Just start thinking about, okay, I should have done a thing, but how has that shaped me, and how have I turned that into like a positive
That's really good
today? And if you haven't,
Yeah.
I'm sure you can figure out a way.
Yeah. Agreed. Great advice, JJ.
Did you enjoy this episode? Please go to your favorite podcast platform to subscribe, rate, and leave a review so others can discover it as well. Growing self-awareness is a lifelong journey, and it's better when we're all in it together. Please think of someone you know who could benefit from hearing today's conversation and share this episode with them.
We can't thank you enough for listening. Until next time, happy exploring.